I feel it's important when studying cinema, either as a critic or filmmaker, to go back to the beginning of individual people within it, to see that germination point, the origin of someone's extensive body of work. The first feature, the first short, even the first college or school project. Any artist's work is an intriguing chronicle of development, experimentation, and ultimately unified through common threads, like, say, Tim Burton's fixation on outsiders, or Steven Spielberg's use of childhood and that innocent perspective on the world. Even in the field of documentaries, a more factual, direct part of the visual arts, there is such gems to be mined within. Enter today's film. Clocking in at over an hour, Josh L., or as he goes by his YouTube name, Sakumo, created a feature-length documentary as part of a video production project on the internet's most infamous autistic man, Christian Weston Chandler, a Virginian native who, well, got up to more than his share of shenanigans as YouTube was blooming, and ultimately became a major viral sensation. The film follows in chronological order the life of this larger-than-life character, from his troubled childhood to even more troubled adult years, through love quests and the creation of his hack character Sonichu, to cross-dressing and all his crimes and misdemeanors over at places like GameStop. The film is by and large comprised of archive footage, mainly Chris's extensive YouTube catalog, ranging from his vlogs with that infamous yellow tint, to his shenanigans in the outside world, be it at game stores, concerts, or even his own backyard. The only piece of original material outside of Josh's narration is an interview with a special needs coordinator spliced throughout the earlier part of the film, mainly focused on Chris's younger days, discussing how this person would deal with autistic individuals like Chris. The music follows suit, being either stock or a selection of video game tracks, such as from the game Portal, which tie back to Chris's obsession with the medium, though these are very sparsely used. Critiquing this film will be somewhat different from the norm of my reviews, as not only does documentary play by a slightly different set of rules to any sort of fictional film, but also it must bear in mind the fact that this is a beginner's project made for an education assignment. So I have to consider potential limitations imposed on the film as part of whatever the grading criteria was. However, at the end of any documentary, regardless of production background or quality, is the question of, does it present the facts in a compelling fashion, and does it have a particular bias that then affects said presentation and facts? In the case of the former, for a first-timer, Josh does a fairly good job giving a clear and concise, roundabout view of the life and works of Chris, breaking down each chapter in his life chronologically and detailing the how, why, and where, and he doesn't skimp on the less pleasing details, be it Chris's bizarre and warped fixations on romance and sex, the darker side of the Sonichu series, or the numerous sagas where Chris was humiliated by trolls into performing strange acts, ranging from the outright goofy to the disturbingly sexual. Josh doesn't shy away from acknowledging any of them, even if he does refrain showing them out of taste from time to time. Of course, the lack of primary research and resources outside of the one interview, and being comprised primarily of secondary material, does sometimes leave the documentary feeling more like a laundry list of events in a basic narrative, instead of a fully formed work designed to really encourage discussion and debate about this man, which plays into the second point. Despite Josh's fairly well-done narration, stating he wants to be neutral and let the viewer make their own judgment, there are several points where Josh is very clearly accentuating Chris's idiocy beyond the footage itself, be it verbally referring to Chris as childish or an idiot at several points, or his editing decision that turns certain events into slapstick, such as a cross-edited fight between Chris and an impersonator set to upbeat music right out of a 90s fighting game. It's amusing, sure, but both of these clash with the supposed objectivity that Josh himself states here, as well as undermine the ending, where Josh then tries to examine Chris and his detractors in some sort of indictment of modern society. Kind of hard to swallow references to social and political texts when just a minute ago you were portraying Chris as some kind of big cartoon character. Tone is not normally something one thinks of when discussing documentary, but it is actually rather vital. If you go too serious, too moral-bound, you just bore the viewer and it makes the film feel tedious. But too wild or eccentric and it can detract from the merit and gravity of the subject. And given this is Chris we're talking about, there would really be only one of two solutions here. Present a straight tale of Chris and what his life has to say about the issues with regards to the people who are raised in the West and how that can affect their mental states, thus really pushing the social indictment angle more, or just be more ebullient, taking a page out of the auteur egotistes out there like Spurlock or Moore, and embrace the colourfulness of Chris and use that to the film's advantage. Looking into the mind of such an odd individual, it's considerations like that that can turn, say, your typical just the facts spiel from Throwaway Information Channel documentary number 3659 and into something that has the beginnings of, say, Becoming a Super Size Me or The Act of Killing. However, Josh himself has stated that he does intend to expand the film in future, and I very much support and welcome this, as there is a lot of room for improvement, and honestly, this is a pretty solid base. For a newcomer to make an hour-long piece on any subject is a daunting task. Frankly, most film schools won't let even their final year's students, the people who are about to go into the industry, go beyond 15 minutes. So to go ahead and make something like this is quite an achievement, honestly. It's a competent and clear introduction to the web's biggest man-child, and there is room for expansion, both in content and style, to really get into the weird world of Chris. Whenever the director's cut comes out, I'll be very happy to watch.